Karen called a Latino teen illegal. He won a citizenship scholarship. Chapter 1, The Accusation. The auditorium at Northwood High School buzzed with excitement. Tonight was the annual academic awards ceremony, a night where students were recognized for their hard work, dedication, and achievements. Parents filled the rows of seats, their faces beaming with pride as they waited to celebrate their children's successes. Among them was a woman named Karen. She sat ramrod straight, her posture rigid, her expression a carefully composed mask of polite interest. Karen was a prominent figure in the community, known for her involvement in various school committees and her outspoken opinions on a range of issues. She was also known for her somewhat forceful personality and her tendency to judge others according to her own narrow standards. Her son Brian was a bright but somewhat entitled student who often coasted on his natural intelligence rather than putting in consistent effort. Karen, however, saw him as a shining star, destined for greatness, and she expected nothing less than a slew of awards for him tonight. As the ceremony progressed, students were called to the stage one by one to receive their accolades. Karen clapped politely for each recipient, but her eyes scanned the program, her anticipation growing with each passing moment. She was waiting for Brian's name to be called, waiting for him to receive the recognition she believed he deserved. Finally, the moment arrived. "And now," the principal announced, his voice booming through the auditorium, "we come to the most prestigious award of the evening, the Citizenship Scholarship. This scholarship is awarded to a student who has not only excelled academically, but has also demonstrated outstanding character, leadership, and commitment to serving their community." Karen sat up even straighter, a triumphant smile playing on her lips. She was certain this was Brian's award. He was, after all, a leader in the Young Republicans Club and had organized a school-wide Patriotism Awareness Week. In her mind, he was the very definition of an ideal citizen. The principal continued, "This year's Citizenship Scholarship recipient is David Rodriguez." A gasp of surprise rippled through the auditorium. Karen's smile vanished, replaced by a look of stunned disbelief. She whipped her head around, searching for the winner. Her eyes landed on a young man walking confidently to the stage. David Rodriguez was a senior at Northwood High. He was a quiet but respected student, known for his intelligence, his humility, and his tireless dedication to social justice. He was the president of the school's Amnesty International Club, had volunteered countless hours at a local community center, and had organized a highly successful voter registration drive. He was also unmistakably Latino. Karen's shock quickly morphed into outrage. She couldn't believe that this boy had won the citizenship scholarship. It was an insult, a travesty. In her mind, David Rodriguez, with his foreign name and his un-American background, was the last person who should be honored for his citizenship. As David accepted the scholarship, his face beaming with pride and gratitude, Karen sat seething in her seat. She couldn't contain herself. She leaned over to the woman next to her, her voice a low, venomous hiss. "I can't believe this," she spat. That illegal won the citizenship scholarship? It's a disgrace." The woman next to her, a kind-faced woman who had volunteered alongside David at the community center, recoiled in shock. "He's not illegal," she said, her voice trembling with indignation. "David is a legal resident. He's lived in this country since he was a baby, and he's one of the most outstanding young men I've ever met." "Oh, please," Karen scoffed, her eyes rolling dismissively. "They all have some story. But the truth is, they're here illegally, taking our jobs, draining our resources, and undermining our values." Her voice, though intended to be a whisper, carried through the stunned silence of the auditorium. Several heads turned, their faces registering shock and disgust. David, who was still on stage accepting congratulations from the principal, seemed to stiffen slightly, though he didn't turn around. The woman next to Karen stood up, her face flushed with anger. "How dare you say such a thing?" she exclaimed, her voice ringing through the auditorium. "David is an exceptional young man. He has done more for this community than you ever have, and he is a citizen in every sense of the word, unlike you, with your hateful and ignorant views." Her outburst drew the attention of everyone in the room. The applause for David died down, replaced by an uneasy silence. All eyes were on Karen, who sat frozen in her seat, her face a mask of fury and embarrassment. Chapter 2. The Fallout. The aftermath of Karen's outburst was swift and brutal. The woman who had defended David, a respected community leader named Maria Hernandez, refused to back down. She recounted Karen's words to several other parents, who were equally appalled. Within hours, word of Karen's comments had spread like wildfire through the school community. A firestorm of outrage erupted on social media, with people condemning her racism and demanding that she be held accountable for her words. "This is unacceptable," one person wrote on Facebook. Karen's comments were not only offensive, but also deeply damaging. They perpetuate harmful stereotypes and create a hostile environment for our Latino students. "We need to stand in solidarity with David and his family," another person tweeted. "We need to show Karen that her bigotry will not be tolerated in our community." A petition was started, calling for Karen to be removed from all her positions in the school and the community. Within days, it garnered thousands of signatures. The school board was flooded with calls and emails demanding action. The local newspaper picked up the story, running a front-page article about the incident. The article quoted Maria Hernandez, who recounted Karen's words in detail. It also featured an interview with David, who spoke with grace and dignity about his experiences with prejudice. "I've faced comments like that before," David said, his voice calm but firm. "It hurts. It makes you feel like you don't belong. But I try not to let it get to me. I know who I am, and I know what I've accomplished. And I'm proud of my heritage." The article also included a brief statement from Karen, in which she attempted to defend herself. "My words were taken out of context," she claimed. "I was simply expressing my concerns about illegal immigration. I have nothing against Latinos. Some of my best friends are Latino." Her statement only served to further inflame the situation. People saw it as a weak and insincere attempt to deflect responsibility for her actions. They pointed out the hypocrisy of her words, noting that she had a long history of making disparaging remarks about immigrants and minorities. The pressure on Karen mounted. She was forced to resign from her positions on the school board and several other community organizations. She was ostracized by many of her former friends and acquaintances who were disgusted by her bigotry. Her son, Brian, also faced the consequences of his mother's actions. He was shunned by his classmates, who were appalled by his mother's racism. He was even removed from his leadership position in the Young Republicans Club, who felt that his association with Karen was damaging to their reputation. Karen's life, once a picture of social standing and community involvement, was now in ruins. She became a pariah, a symbol of intolerance and prejudice. She was subjected to a barrage of online hate, her inbox flooded with angry messages and even death threats. She tried to defend herself, to explain her views, but no one was willing to listen. She had crossed a line, and there was no turning back. She had become the very thing she claimed to despise, an outcast, a threat to the community. David, on the other hand, became a symbol of hope and resilience. He was hailed as a hero, a young man who had risen above prejudice and adversity to achieve greatness. He received numerous awards and accolades, including several scholarships and grants. The outpouring of support for David extended far beyond the school community. National media outlets picked up his story, interviewing him on television and featuring him in magazine articles. He became a voice for immigrant rights and a role model for young Latinos all over the country. "David's story is an inspiration to us all," said a prominent Latino activist. "He shows us that even in the face of hate, we can rise above it and achieve our dreams. He is a testament to the strength and resilience of our community." Chapter 3. The Scholarship. As the controversy surrounding Karen's comments continued to simmer, David focused on his future. He had been accepted to several prestigious universities, and he was weighing his options. But the cost of tuition was a significant burden for his family, who had sacrificed everything to provide him with a good education. David's parents had immigrated to the United States from Mexico when he was a baby. They had worked tirelessly, often in low-paying jobs, to make ends meet. They had always instilled in David the importance of hard work, education, and perseverance. "Mijo, education is the key to your future," his mother would say. "It's something no one can ever take away from you. You must study hard and make us proud." David had taken his parents' words to heart. He had excelled in school, earning top grades and participating in numerous extracurricular activities. He had always dreamed of going to college, of becoming a lawyer, and of fighting for justice for his community. But the reality of his financial situation threatened to derail his plans. He had applied for every scholarship and grant he could find, but he was still far short of the amount he needed. He didn't want to burden his parents further, but he didn't know how else he could afford to go to college. Then one day, he received a letter in the mail that changed everything. It was from a national organization that provided scholarships to immigrant students. David had applied for their citizenship scholarship several months earlier, but he had almost forgotten about it. As he opened the letter, his hands trembling with anticipation, he couldn't believe what he was reading. He had won the scholarship. It would cover the full cost of his tuition, plus room and board, at any university in the United States. David burst into tears, overwhelmed with joy and gratitude. He ran to his parents, who were working in the garden, and shared the good news with them. They embraced him tightly, their faces wet with tears of pride and happiness. "Mijo, we are so proud of you," his father exclaimed, his voice choked with emotion. "You have worked so hard for this. You deserve this blessing." "Gracias a Dios," his mother whispered, her eyes filled with tears of gratitude. "This is a miracle, a dream come true." David knew that this scholarship was more than just a financial gift. It was a validation of his hard work, his dedication, and his worth as a student and as a person. It was a testament to the power of education to overcome adversity and to break down barriers. He also knew that it was a rebuke to people like Karen, who judged others based on their ethnicity or their immigration status. It was a reminder that true citizenship was not about where you were born or what your last name was, but about your character, your values, and your contributions to society. When the news of David's scholarship spread, there was an outpouring of celebration in the community. People saw it as a victory, a triumph over prejudice and hate. They organized a parade in his honor, they threw him a party, and they showered him with gifts and congratulations. Even some of the people who had initially supported Karen began to change their minds. They realized that they had been wrong to defend her, that her views were not only offensive, but also deeply harmful. They started to question their own assumptions and biases. Karen, however, remained stubbornly resistant. She refused to acknowledge that she was wrong, clinging to her hateful beliefs. She became even more isolated and marginalized as more and more people distanced themselves from her. Chapter 4. The Confrontation. As David prepared to leave for college, he received an unexpected visitor. It was Karen. She looked different. She was thinner, her face etched with lines of regret and exhaustion. She seemed smaller, less imposing than he remembered. David was surprised to see her. He hadn't spoken to her since the night of the award ceremony. He wasn't sure what she wanted. Karen stood on his doorstep, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She took a deep breath, her eyes filled with a mixture of shame and desperation. "David," she began, her voice barely a whisper. I wanted to talk to you before you left." David nodded, his expression neutral. "Okay," he said. "What is it?" Karen hesitated for a moment, her gaze fixed on the ground. I wanted to apologize," she said finally, her voice trembling slightly. "I know it's been a long time, and I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need to say it. I was wrong. I was so wrong about you." David remained silent, listening as Karen continued. "I said some terrible things to you," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "I judged you. I insulted you. I tried to demean you. And I did it all because of your ethnicity, because of where your parents came from. I was blinded by my own prejudice, my own ignorance. And I am so, so sorry." Tears streamed down her face as she spoke, her body shaking with remorse. David watched her, his heart filled with a mixture of pity and a grudging respect. He could see that she was genuinely sorry, that she was truly Hoi Hen for her actions. "I know that my apology can't undo the harm I caused," Karen said, her voice barely audible. "But I hope that someday you can believe that I have changed, that I am not the same person I was back then." David took a deep breath. He had never expected this. He had forgiven Karen long ago, but he had never imagined that she would actually apologize to him in person. "I believe you," he said finally, his voice soft but firm. "I can see that you're sorry, and I appreciate you saying this." Karen looked up, her eyes widening in surprise. "You? You forgive me?" she whispered. David nodded. "Yes," he said, "I forgive you, but I also want you to understand the impact of your words. They hurt. They perpetuate harmful stereotypes, and they make it harder for people like me to feel like they belong." Karen nodded, her face filled with shame. "I understand," she said, "and I promise you, I will never say anything like that again. I have learned my lesson. I have changed." David looked at her for a long moment, searching her eyes for any hint of insincerity, but he saw only genuine remorse. He believed her. "Okay, Karen," he said. "I believe you, and I accept your apology." A small smile flickered across Karen's face. "Thank you, David," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "That means more to me than you can know." Chapter 5. The future David went on to college, where he excelled academically and continued his activism. He became a leader in the immigrant rights movement, speaking at rallies, organizing protests, and lobbying lawmakers. He never forgot the prejudice he had faced, but he used his experiences to fuel his passion for justice. Karen, true to her word, became an advocate for tolerance and understanding. She volunteered at a local community center, working with immigrants and refugees. She spoke at schools and churches, sharing her story and urging others to confront their own biases. She even reached out to David from time to time, offering him her support and encouragement. She became one of his most ardent supporters, attending his speeches and donating to his causes. Years later, David graduated from law school and became a successful attorney, specializing in immigration law. He dedicated his career to helping immigrants and refugees navigate the complex legal system and achieve their dreams of a better life. He never forgot Karen, and he was grateful for the change she had made in her life. He saw her as a reminder that people can change, that even the most deeply ingrained prejudices can be overcome. One day, David received a call from Karen. She was calling to invite him to speak at a conference on racial reconciliation that she was organizing. David was hesitant at first, but then he decided to accept. He saw it as an opportunity to share his story and to inspire others to work for a more just and equitable world. At the conference, David and Karen shared the stage. They told their story, the story of how prejudice had led to pain and division, but how forgiveness and reconciliation had led to healing and understanding. Their story resonated with the audience, moving many to tears. People were inspired by David's grace and Karen's transformation. They saw their story as a testament to the power of the human spirit to overcome adversity and to embrace change. In the end, David and Karen became unlikely friends, bound together by their shared experience. They learned that even in the darkest of times, hope is possible, and that even in the face of hate, love and understanding can prevail.